photos tell the truth? This is a question I've been thinking about since I went on a little family vacation a couple weeks ago. Something I like to do when I do a family vacation is print out books. Just use Shutterfly. It's nothing too fancy. Anybody that is a parent knows that a vacation with little kids is not much of a vacation. It's more of an experiment in trying to escape from a normal routine, but at the end of the day, it's probably about 10 times as much work. I think looking back on our vacations, even though they have been difficult with our little kids, it's always worth it. And something specifically about the photography that I take on these vacations is I look back and the photos show only the good parts. And that's really why I started thinking about this question of, do photos tell the truth? And I think my initial gut reaction is, yes, photography is great for capturing a moment in time, for being able to, whether it's journalistic or if it's a candid shot of your family, being able to capture a moment in time to tell that story. But looking back at this book, which is full of what I consider some beautiful photos, I can remember the feelings and what was going on behind the scenes, behind the camera. So let's look through some of these photos, and while we do that, I'm going to talk about what was actually going on behind the scenes of these photos. If you're from California, you know that stop at In-N-Out is obligatory. We stopped in Solvang, and the first thing is we see some photos. Maybe you could tell a little bit of emotion, a little raw emotion from this shot. My daughter and my wife, she was not feeling good. She was throwing up after driving for a couple hours. We thought it was motion sickness. We found out that later it was some sort of stomach bug because we all got sick on the trip. And that was one of the reasons why this trip was so hard. We did get some yummy pancakes. We got up to the Bay Area and saw my sister and her husband. And I was able to get out one day into San Francisco with my boys. Behind the scenes of this photo though, we had complaining children, kids getting tired. But at the end of the day, you look at these photos and these are the selects, and these are the ones that I selected because they were pretty, but also because the emotions were happier in these photos. I think that's a conscious thing that we do as photographers, is we pick and choose which photos to tell our story. And I think in itself that is sort of being half truthful, or just being subjective rather than objective. And maybe if there was a photographer taking photos of us as a family, they would capture some of those more raw moments. I love this photo because this is a kid's book about San Francisco that we read all the time, and we got to see some of the things that we read about in that book. And the kids were super excited about that. We went to Berkeley, California because my wife went to grad school there. I worked there for a couple years. We loved going to the parks. Here's a photo. So this is a perfect example of a photo where this was at my sister's apartment. The kids were completely just overtired and not having it that day. So here they are about to watch some television because we just needed a break, and they needed to chill out for a little bit. And I tried to frame it, just interesting framing with that wall and that couch. But you could tell they're not super happy, but you might not know the whole story just by looking at that photo. All right, so here's a couple of my favorite photos of my kids that I shot on this trip. This was at a pit stop. We were outside of a Taco Bell, running around in the grass. It was super windy, so their hair was wild. These two kids were having a blast. My other kid was having a really hard time because this is when he was starting to get sick. And so the drive was just miserable for him. So just an example of that the photo only tells the half truth. So we stopped down in Avila Beach, which is a great little beach town outside of San Luis Obispo. Here, everyone's sick. So this one maybe tells more of a truth about that. This photo. So this, to be completely honest about this photo, I was super grumpy and tired of the whole trip. I took my daughter out in the morning. Everyone else was sick in bed that whole day. I took her out, but this photo is so cute. This was actually shot on my iPhone. I like these two photos, and I thought about putting these on these two pages like this, just change in focus. Not really a great photo necessarily, but I think the two of them together is pretty cool. We got this awesome room at the Lighthouse Inn at Avila Beach, and I took a few photos and I blended them together from morning, sunrise, to night. And there's 5 photos in here that I blended together. You can tell the lighting change. I thought that was pretty cool. I'll have another tutorial about this on my YouTube channel soon, about how to edit those day to night photos together. I went out one evening. This was after a long day. Get away for a minute, and I took these photos. But another example of beautiful photos, story behind the photo. I needed a break, and I went for a walk. A couple more photos at sunset. Unfortunately, this was the one day it was cloudy, so the sunset wasn't as awesome as the other days. But again, if you have kids, you know it's a luxury to get out there and take some photos while you're on vacation. Here, happy beach photos, blue skies, California, but I'm pretty sure at this moment the kids were freaking out because they were fighting over these beach toys. Again, you as a parent, you know, you try to do your best. You have the best intentions. You pay an absorbent amount of money for these beach toys from the hotel, but then the kids are fighting over them. And even though we got a couple great photos, there were a couple great memories and moments. There was also a lot of tears and crying in these moments. But I love the colors and how these came out. And that's that. This is another great photo. This is another perfect example. Here, the kids, we were in Sausalito visiting my sister. The kids were tired, they were crying, they were cranky. My wife was going to get the car, and it looks like they're having a decent time, but really everyone was cranky in this shot. So what do you think? This was just a little philosophical idea that I was thinking about. Do photos really tell the whole truth? Do they not? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing that they don't necessarily? I feel like almost a little guilty having these beautiful photos, but then realizing that behind the scenes it was kind of stressful and people were maybe grumpy at a specific moment in time. But at the same time, what I've learned as a parent of 3 kids and growing older is that most of my memories are memories because I have photographs or video of that moment in time. And sometimes if I don't take a video or snap a photo, I completely forget that moment, that story, and having those photos does help me recall those moments. So let me know in the comments, do you have any stories that you can relate to this? Is this something that I'm just feeling myself? Or if you have stories about where photos that you've shot don't match exactly what is seen. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for being here on this journey with me and for listening. All right, bye.